A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. Once again, in very extreme and unprecedented circumstances, still haven't completely emerged from the lockdown. We don't know where our beloved travel industry, hospitality, aviation, whatever you want to call it, we don't know where it's going. I'm sure we've attended enough of webinars in the last 6 to 7 months. Uh, we actually thought of doing something very, very different today. So, first of all, a very warm welcome on behalf of Travel Biz Monitor. We're very proud to inform you that Travel Biz Monitor, along with its partners, mytravelresearch.com from Australia and Big Blue Road India, has put together this e-workshop, which will attempt to help you go through the what we probably call the reboot, the restart, and the post COVID era. I myself have attended a lot of webinars on these topics. So what we thought is this time we'll make it a little very, very different. So we've started this e-workshop. It says relaunch your business and actually learn from global case studies. Yes, we actually have today feet on the ground. We're going to tell you what the global industry is doing with a few of the countries who've now emerged out of the lockdown and maybe what we can expect going forward. So this is more tuned to the practicality and less towards the theory, because I think we've all heard enough of the theory going around. I'd like to introduce my partners for today. First of all, we have Caroline Childs. She's from mytravelresearch.com. My Travel Research is a market intelligence company dedicated to helping the travel and tourism industry succeed. It leads a global neural network, a virtual team of travel researchers and marketing specialists whose job it is to keep on top of traveler trends, opportunities, and market changes. Think of My Travel Research as the travel industry's secret superpower. By leveraging their insights, you'll be empowered to make more confident decisions, overcome the loudest voices in the room, and thus achieve better results. My Travel Research associates with Big Blue Road in India and UK, offering market research and consulting to the travel industry. Caroline herself has spent over 30 years helping travel, tourism, and aviation businesses achieve their goals by using research and other evidence to guide strategy and planning. She has worked in more than 35 countries and brings a detailed understanding of customers and how to connect with them. As well as running her own business, she has worked for organizations such as IATA, in the International Air Transport Association, TNS, the world's largest custom research company, and the Travel Research Center. Her clients include blue chip names across the industry, including Air Rianta, Tourism Australia, Tour España, which is the Spanish National Tourism Office, of course, Air New Zealand, Qantas, and Emirates. And we can go on and on, but I'd like to keep this intro short because we want to hear what Caroline really has to say. We also have with us Sean Mendes. Sean is the director of Big Blue Road in India, who I said is the associate of mytravelresearch.com. Big Blue Road has numerous clients in the travel and tourism industry, developing their business strategy, new product development, marketing through business intelligence, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. Basically, what it means is that Sean is a smart guy. Anyway, so my travel research works closely with Big Blue Road in India and other regions, offering market research and consulting to the travel industry. Sean has held many roles in his career, with experience ranging from marketing and new product development to strategic planning, financial planning, and corporate affairs. The most recent being the strategic planning and new product development for Discover the World and its array of global clients. During his time with Discover, he was responsible for the India business of various global business brands, such as Aero Mexico, Copa Airlines, Condor Airlines, etc., in the airline industry. And hospitality, he's been consulting with Caesars Entertainment, Extended Stay America, Park Hotel Group, World Hotels, and so on. In the crew cruises, a few of them were Carnival Cruises, Hurtigruten, Variety Cruises, and so on. In the car rentals, it's Hertz Rent a Car, Dollar, etc. And in the travel technology space, Expedia's travel agent affiliate program, and also Travel Tech. He was part of the core team that brought Expedia TAAP to India. He was also tasked with creating a new online revenue channel for the Department of Tourism of Goa very recently. And he set up an entire e-commerce business for them, from technology to the contact centers, from people to the processes. Sean is also an accredited market researcher from the Market Research Society in the United Kingdom. What Sean and his team also will be doing today, ladies and gentlemen, is they will be monitoring all the questions that come in from you. Like you can see that there is a Q&A tab on your desktop in front of you. Simply click on the Q&A tab on your screen and enter the questions that you'd like to ask. We would make the effort to try and answer most of these questions in real time. If we can't answer all your questions in real time, we assure you that we get back to you within 48 hours and try and answer each and every one of them. But what Sean and his team will also do right now is they will monitor the questions that we have coming in, and the 5 or 6 most pertinent questions will be taken up during this discussion immediately after Caroline's presentation, and we will try and get you the answers to those most crucial 5 or 6 questions before we go out and try and answer all of them in the next day or two. So like I said, this is going to be done differently. We'd like to make it interactive. We'd like to know what you think. We hope that you're going to be able to benefit from this. I'm sure you will. These are on-the-ground case studies, which Caroline has so painstakingly, managed to cull out over the last few weeks of preparation. It's been done specifically keeping the Indian market in mind. And I'd like to really thank her for her time. Caroline, the screen, I can't say the floor is yours, but the screen is yours. Please take it away.
Thank you, Sheldon. Well, these days the floor and the screen are pretty much the same place, aren't they? So I wanted to say a big hello to all my friends in India. I have worked in India, and it's always a delight and a pleasure. And, I can't wait for the borders to open so that I can come back. But right now I can't even leave the state I'm in. So I'm metaphorically over there with you, and it's still delightful to be back, if I can put it like that. Now, before we go any further, Sheldon has rightly mentioned the importance of evidence in what we're talking about and what we're doing. So Sean has a little poll that he would like to share with you, so that we can get to know you, we can be reflecting and tweaking what we're doing, because Sheldon mentioned this is interactive. Now, with the numbers of people that we've got, we can't necessarily make it as interactive as we would always love to do in a true workshop, but we would love to just get to know you a little bit, understand what type of sector you're in, how big your business is, and a little bit about how this has affected you. Because certainly when we look around the world, although the industry as a whole has been devastated, I think WTTC is talking about 140 million jobs. We do know that there are winners within the sector. So we might like to just tease apart and see if all of those people are there. So if you would like to actually tell us a little bit about your business and how you're going, we would love to hear about it. So, Sean, if you could give me a shout when that's complete.
So, Caroline, I think from the audience, we've got about 28% that are from the travel, tourism, and experience sector.
Okay.
We've got about 18% from the cruise industry.
Wow, great.
We've got about 15%, between 14 and 15%, that's from accommodations.
Okay.
And then the remaining are, ranging from between 4% to about 8% in the other industries.
Fantastic. And large or small companies, Sean, are we seeing response size in terms of companies?
I'm still waiting for that to come in.
Okay. How is that looking now?
It's looking good. So we've got, I think most of the companies that are here are between the 1:5 or the 1:10 category. So they're small businesses.
Okay.
That's about, I would say, about 50 to 60% are between the 1:10 or the 1:20 category. The other 25% are the 500 plus. So we've got a good mix between the small companies and the very large companies that have over 500 staff.
Brilliant. Okay. And what about how people's businesses are going during all of this, so that we can all share each other's pain, but as I said, share those odd stories of hope as well. We would love to hear those too.
So I think from the extent that COVID has affected the business, I think we're seeing a whopping 70% actually showing that there's been a drastic negative impact on the business.
Okay.
So I can see another 25 to 26% showing significant negative impact on the business. I think the other three categories, which is some negative impact, and the other two are kind of negligence. So I think most of the companies that are on this call today are being, severely or drastically affected by COVID, or their business has been severely or drastically affected by COVID.
Okay. I would say great, but obviously that's not great. But thank you very much for being honest and sharing that with us. And like I say, I think a couple of things. Sheldon touched on one of my visions for what we're trying to do, which is very much around the idea of empowering people, because we can all feel terribly powerless in this situation, can't we? And today's really about, I wouldn't say giving you back complete control, because none of us ever really had that in the first place, but about giving you windows of opportunity to seize back control of your own destiny and to take things forward. I'm now going to switch my camera off so that the slides operate the whole screen. So I'm going to take that off so that the focus is all on that and keep talking in the background. So I am still here, but I'm just going to turn my camera off as we go through this next stage. So the first thing, it sounds like we've got something that's actually pretty representative, not just of the travel industry in India, but actually, frankly, of the travel industry globally, which is we're a very diverse ecosystem. There are lots of moving parts to our sector. And the second thing is we cluster at both ends of the scale. So a lot of SMEs, in fact, a lot of micro businesses, and then a relatively small number of very large players. That pretty much reflects the travel industry, which is great to think that we've got that wide range of experience there. Now, in trying to find those little windows of hope, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and we'll talk about today, is to frame the conversation. Now, as Sheldon said, we want to be very practical in what we're doing, but we do need to ground that in some thinking to make it as practical and as widely applicable as possible. Then we'll talk about the examples, and then we'll talk about some frameworks to apply these to your business. As I said, we don't want to get too much into theory. These are really practical ways that when I do workshops with clients, that we apply these and bring these to work with you. Now, on that topic, and with such a diverse thing, one thing that I very much do want to encourage people to do is not just to look for examples of what businesses that are in your particular part of the vertical of the travel industry are talking about. Because one of the things that I think we've realized is that thinking can actually trap us in ways that make it hard for us to get at. So this is some work that I came across this morning from behavioral scientists. So what we're talking about here is a crisis of societal configuration. So the problem isn't that we lack necessary resources and skills. All of you have immense abilities, skills, knowledge, and I know attitude to get this right. The challenge we've got is that the way we were doing things has been totally upended by COVID. So we actually need to put things back together in different ways. So what I would encourage you to do is not just to be listening for an example. So when I put up a cruise example, go, oh, this one's for me, but to be looking at the themes that underpin the examples, to try and work out which ones might have a resonance for different aspects of your business. Because one of the things you're going to have to do to go forward is to break down and think differently about the skills and qualities that your organization or business has. what I always think is it's really, really important that none of us exist in a world without context. The pandemic didn't arrive from nowhere. It's linked to broad global macro trends like deforestation, wider international air travel. So all of the things that we've benefited from as a community over the years in terms of the growth of travel have made the world much more global, and that's come together. So what I wanted to do is to ground the examples today in things that were happening in the broader environment, either with travel and tourism or in the broader consumer mindset. And the first set of those is to talk about things that have always been important in either to us as a community or to travelers, but kind of dialed up in importance. So, safety and security have always been important in travel. Believe me, from somebody who worked in the airline industry for many years, safety was our number one thing. Flexibility. So one of the things that consumers have actually always wanted is flexibility in what they're doing, and a need for us to work out where we can be flexible without losing money. The number one thing that I still see most regularly requested after Wi-Fi for hotels is flexibility on checkout times. So that kind of flexibility was always there, but right now consumers are looking for us to acknowledge and manage with them that uncertainty and flexibility. Community. So the idea of being part of something bigger and of being part of a broader community, that's both true in the consumer mindset, but we also, as I say, and as I hope to show, we need to be thinking and working together as the travel community. And that's going to be very, very important going forward. Reassurance, peace of mind. That's important both to consumers when they travel, that they understand things, that they feel reassured, and to us in trying to drive through for our businesses and free our brains to think about that. So that is actually really important for both sides and has got more important. Nature. In a world where we can't touch and communicate with humans, being out in fresh and open spaces are there. So if you're in a business or in a location where that's an option to offer people, that's definitely going to be something that's more important. Similarly, family. So, and we need to think families mean many things today. We've seen growth in things like multi-generational travel, but we've also seen family meaning to millennials, their friends are part of their family. So we need to think about that. Who's in our immediate cohort? Who's our tribe? And finally, we heard those numbers about everyone saying their business has been that badly affected, and that can make us feel and look rosily back on the past. But I ran a whole series of webinars with Big Blue Rover participated in earlier this year. And one of the things that became clear to me over all of that is, it was already a pretty tough environment before this got there. So I do think we need to be thinking about that and recognizing that that's part of the context of what we were doing. The other thing that we saw was a whole bunch of trends that were emerging, were just beginning to emerge, that what's happened is that COVID-19 has basically just turbocharged those. So we've seen trends like the growth in wellness behavior, people looking for very bespoke experiences, that we want things very tailored to our needs, that they're looking to interact with businesses that are not cookie cutter. So we saw hotel chains, the major hotel chains, for example, moving away from the fact that you could walk into a room in a Marriott, for example, and not know where you are in the world, to creating sub-brands that allow them to personalize and bring some of that localness and uniqueness into things. On top of that, we've seen the acceleration of everything to do with digital. So on the one side, we've seen the growth of a tribe of people who just want to travel. Their skills are totally portable. They do not have to be working in an office. Hello? I'm getting some feedback here. Sorry, I apologize for that. So digital nomads. So this group of people whose skills and work could be done anywhere, going and camping out in places for a long time and holding out. And I'll give you some examples of that. The second thing that we'd seen long before this that I think has really been accelerated is the growth of virtual reality, online reality, and everything online has grown. People are transacting online more. They're engaging with and experiencing the world online more, and we really want to be driving into that. Another reason why I want you to think beyond just your immediate vertical, hotels, cruise, travel agents, whatever, is that we'd already seen a breaking down in the categories of what different travel verticals did, and also who's a travel business and not. So even before this pandemic, 2 years ago, I cited the example of a hardware chain in Germany that's actually opened a hotel. and hotels where you can buy everything in the room so that you can take it home with you. And so hotels becoming retail, hardware chains, retail chains becoming hotels. So we're seeing that our worlds are colliding and that the boundaries of things are blurring, and that's been accelerated as well. The other things that we've seen was a growth of a focus on local and buying local and the authenticity of local. We saw a growth in the idea of not only I can only experience this in this place, but I can only experience this right now. So the growth of ephemeral experiences, so pop-ups, that was something that we saw. We grew an expectation that our best source of advantage was not so much in being is selling by being helpful. This is particularly important as we go into an online space, so that what builds and engages the relationship with the consumer is not you going out and saying, hey, buy from me, but you showing them, letting them work out from themselves that they want to buy from you by being helpful, and that's got more important. And finally, that we're moving into a world where we need to be sustainable, and indeed the example of Copenhagen, for example, they have moved into a space where they're saying we're actually, tourism is going to put more back in environmentally, socially, economically than it takes out. So all of these are trends that I will pick up and highlight as we go through. And it's really important because this is where not only will they help you find the ones that best suit your business beyond those obvious, this is a travel agency, I can do that, but because they will help you build a sustainable advantage beyond the immediate crisis. So that the time you're investing now is going to be a gift that keeps on giving. So let's get into some of those trends and examples. So this is an example of a product called Movie Bill. Now, Movie Bill is an augmented reality service that's delivered to people's smartphones. And basically, it was being used by airlines before this to, personalize experiences, provide experiences at seat, giving people in flight movie guides that were tailored to their tastes, etc. And what they've pivoted to do in this recession, yes, there is the pivot word there, is they have created a way for airlines to put all of their the things that used to be on paper on board onto this app, so that all of their menus, boarding cards, all of those experiences can actually be put onto an app that people can download or interact with on flights, and that it's actually more attractive than that. So not only is it safer, that's safety first, but it's actually more attractive. Now, obviously, this is for an airline, but this could be done and used for a hotel. It could actually be used for distributing travel itineraries. I know we're emailing them at the moment, but imagine if you could make them more welcoming and interactive and put augmented reality in there to do them. Just a quick note, you might notice some little icons on the bottom of the page. That's where I'm linking this back to some of those big trends, so I can show you how they relate, so that when you're thinking about the trends that might be most important to your business, you can look at and work on these examples as seeing that as something going forward. The second thing that we've seen, now obviously as an industry where we've been looking at massive downturns, we've been shedding staff. I talked earlier about the 140 million employees that World Travel and Tourism Council thinks we might lose. Now, that's a concern in both two ways. One, for the economy, but two, it's actually a case that we're actually at the point where many businesses are risking losing employees that they would really like to keep or to be able to bring back as things pick up. And I think what's important about this is to think about then, look at this as an example of a way that this was dealt with for here in Australia, where I'm based, where what we saw on the one hand was airlines, travel businesses being forced to furlough or lay off workers. But we saw that there was a whole surge in a whole group of people that were needed to do things like contact tracing. This is a good win for government, because we know the more we can be effective at track and trace, the quicker we can emerge from lockdown, and the more that we can control this terrible virus. So that pre-screening for people when they were going for testing, contact tracing, information services. And what we know about frontline staff across the entire travel and tourism vertical is we are amazing at interacting with human beings. So that this is something that I feel that we could really, really be looking to say, well, look, if there's a way for me to furlough my staff, but to work with organizations that have got a rise in need for staff. We also saw this happening with delivery staff as well, for, say, ground handling staff for airlines. But, you know, this strikes me as a really great example for India, because we know that India is the queen of call center technology and a world leader in this space. So there's going to be a need for that. Can you be looking to do deals right now where there might be a growth in this and a growth in ways to work like this, to actually deploy your staff and use them in that way, and that flexibility coming through. Now, this is a wonderful example from New Zealand. So the Walsh Group is an inbound, there's somebody who is a DMO for international destinations and hospitality and tourism businesses like airlines, etc. Now, with New Zealand was basically the borders to New Zealand are shut. They've only just reopened even to Australia. So they had a problem that they had travel agents that they were working with, their long-time relationships, but they also, their travel agents had customers who either wanted their money back or who had a problem. At the same time, they had a brand, Experience Travel, that they were looking to retire. So they came up with this idea of, you know, if there were universities who were looking to send students overseas, or travel agents who had booked people to certain destinations, as a multicultural nation, New Zealand was actually able to put together some tours in New Zealand with authentic experiences of Japan or France. So that what they were able to do was to curate experiences which they only sold through the traveler trade, so that they could support travel agents and particularly educational travel agents. But the demand was so great for this that they've actually expanded it into the broader area. And travel agents can not only book this, if they book a certain number of places, they can actually go on and be part of the tour, so that they can build relationships and be part of that relationship with their clients. So this for me is a fabulous example of the industry coming together and us finding win-win solutions, and actually supporting things like tour guides who would have been going overseas with those tours, and tour leaders, is actually giving them jobs and finding ways to do that in a way that's local and supporting that local thing. I mean, these Japanese tours are actually led in Japanese within Auckland, and actually India is a very multicultural society as well. You have lots of very diverse experiences. I'm sure that there are parallels to this that you could bring together. This is one that I really, really love. So this is an Agents of Influence. So this was a digital marketing agency that was looking at the fact that lots of travel agents and tour operator staff and call center staff have been furloughed. But these are people with amazing knowledge. And so what they've done is they've set up a business called Agents of Influence, and they've pivoted agents from being direct frontline salespeople into being social media influencers and working with overseas destinations or even domestic destinations to help them sell their product. And where they're even better, they're actually an improvement on the existing influencer option of digital, of modern marketing, is that they can actually then take that through and sell. And I thought I might share their video with you so that we can actually have nope, that's the right one. It's playing. So I just love that example. That's a really great example, and I think anyone who's a tour operator, and I know we have quite a large number of those as well as travel agents, this is something where particularly your very digitally savvy junior staff, this is something that I think I could very clearly see extending to India. To come through. Another example of this extending and pivoting for a business, and this is a really great one because this is one business with two ways that they've diversified. So this is Bunnock Tours, which some of you in the trade may know, as I know they do lead a great many tours from Australia and New Zealand to India. So some of you may be connected to them that way. So it's a small family tour operator based in South Australia. So the first thing that they've done is they've used their knowledge and their passion about where they live to start leading tours initially for people even within their own state, South Australia, showing them things about where they live that they didn't know and requiring and breathing that pride on that side. So one of those things that they've done is that pivot, which we've seen in many places, to people providing local high-end tours for people who'd never used that in their home country before. But the second thing was that they realized they had a really fantastic and successful digital media marketing team. And so they created a travel agency, a digital marketing agency, and they basically put their marketing department into that and into helping, and not just travel businesses, but all sorts of small businesses who just didn't know how to do this stuff, which I think is a really fantastic example again. A different example here. Now, we talked about this idea of virtual worlds colliding. And one thing that we've seen, now initially most of this was done as promotion to keep in front of people, but increasingly I see this as something that we can monetize. So this was actually nesting experiences and giving people a flavor of experiences during lockdown when they couldn't travel, through gamification and through particularly using popular games. So this is Sentosa resort in Singapore, and I think I absolutely love this. This was done for free, so this is a free experience, and I will just share it with you and let you see how it works. So they used Animal Crossing, which is one of the world's most popular games, and they see that. So now, if you're thinking this is really something that is probably only suitable for young people or small children, I have to tell you that some of the world's wealthiest individuals are fanatical players of games like Animal Crossing, and people are quite used to spending money within them. So while you might not be getting the full value of a night's accommodation, if you could virtualize your experiences and charge people to upgrade a room or something like that, you can definitely be bringing revenue in. And the good news about that is, by using something like Animal Crossing or Civilizations, which is Mark Zuckerberg's favorite game, by the way, you could actually, the games manufacturers will do the programming and the work for you to bring that across. So I think it's a really great, fun example of kind of how to do things. Everybody always gets a bit nervous when we mention Airbnb, but I am going to mention Airbnb because they have done this, as with everything else. They have used their smarts and their experience and their data, and they have created a whole bunch of different things that they have done for this. So the first of these is that they have created these visual online experiences, which are totally bespoke and unique and are actually paid experiences. So people are paying to do things like visit the exclusion zone in Chernobyl and feed the wild dogs that live there. You can go on an ultra marathon in a different city coached by an Olympic marathon runner. So that's the first of those things that they've done. The second thing is that they've worked with hosts to create safe environments and to have long stays to satisfy our need for our digital nomads coming through. And finally, they've been helpful because we know we've been celebrating the work of healthcare workers all around the world. So one, they've been helpful where workers have to separate from their families by letting out Airbnb accommodation. But secondly, you can actually gift these accommodation stays. So they're helping their hosts, they're helping people feel good about the world, and they're helping things do. So super, super smart examples. How could you apply these to what you're doing, particularly if you're in the accommodation or experience sectors? I'm not sure, I can't remember if Sean said if we had anyone from the event space, but this is an idea that would work, I think, for anyone who's in the stadium space, the exhibition space, the business event space. So this was the UK's first socially distanced concert. If you'd like to find out more about any of these things, I put links where you see the sources, they're all hyperlinked, so you can go and have a look and find out more. So this was a socially distanced live music event, and it's a pop-up, so it's part of that very much on-trend ephemerality, and it also means it can travel around the country. So basically you can see everyone is socially distanced. You can provide staff to escort people and create bubbles. And there's a whole protocol that makes people feel safe while enjoying a live music experience. Similarly, in countries where there's still drive-in movies, we've seen people using car parks for drive-in movies and stuff like that. So there's all sorts of great ways that you could do that. And I could imagine this similarly working for a major business event. So big conference, we have big global speakers coming in. I could definitely see this technology and this approach working really well there as well, not just for live events. Now, this is a live event as well, but this one's a little bit different. So this was a hotel in Kiev, and they staged a concert. The first one was free and was done by musicians who'd stayed in and used the accommodation while they were staying there. But later they've actually now selling these concerts and they're selling out. So they had a local band come in and play on the roof of their hotel. And now this is not, the next video I'm going to show you on this, it's not the best quality, but what I want you to do, I'm not going to play the whole of it. What I want you to do is see and understand the emotions that we're seeing when we look at this. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this one for you. So I think you can see that that really is a great emotional connection. And as I said, they're actually selling those tickets. And they're creating ways to do this. And they're actually, the hotel has been so successful that other hotels, it's part of the Sheraton Group, they're actually rolling this out across their other hotels in Russia and the Ukraine. So again, a fabulous thing to do to build connection to your local community, and to create that kind of emotion and the relationship. But also it's a bookable thing that's bringing in revenue to your business. So again, it's about using a space that you had. It's about using the relationships you've had. It's about using your e-commerce platforms in different ways to come through there. I find this totally hilarious. So some people are so desperate to get back out on the road that even though we can't do full lock-in, we've actually seen airlines across Asia, airlines and airports partner together to offer so-called fake flights. So these are flights where you don't actually go anywhere, but you actually get out, you get to go through security, you get to have an airport experience, and then you have a meal on board the flight, and you go through the whole in-flight experience and come out. Now, the first one of these was one that was done in Taiwan. But today, this one came through very much today. This is one for tickets for a meal on board Singapore Airlines A380. So diners paid up to £360 to eat on board on A380, and that could be everything from up to first class all the way down to economy class. And you know, Sean and I were just calculating this. They only filled the plane half full to maintain social distancing, but this is £1 million rupees of money coming through, and £1 million rupees of money for people to sit in an aircraft because we're so desperate to get back out there and have that travel experience. So I just think that that's absolutely crazy. And interestingly, the other thing that you can do is, if you don't want to get on the plane, if you're not allowed to leave home for any reason, they will deliver you a first class menu. And they will do that. We've actually seen people ordering, airline catering companies have been pivoting to deliver people meals that are onboard meals to have that nostalgia experience. Now, this is a flight that left the ground. This is the Qantas flight to nowhere. So these are sightseeing flights. Qantas has always run these to Antarctica, but they've now added them across Australia. And what we're kind of seeing with this, so this was a flight that they put out online. So again, it's a revenue generating opportunity. It sold out within 10 minutes. Qantas CEO Alan Joy said it's actually probably the fastest they've ever sold a flight. And they're going to keep doing this because this is one way. They've got aircraft part, they can actually be using them. They can get them out and about. They can manage all of the health and safety implications of this. And actually those sightseeing flights, they can predict the loads and use them really well. And it's actually also a great way. They're partnering with destinations to put about where they fly so that people can fly over world famous destinations to do this. So again, is this something that those of you, even if you're not an airline, could you be working with an airline to package something up and create something like this? We've seen a lot of examples of hotels pivoting as they can't take people in overnight. We have seen some hotels take people in, for example, rental apartments in Japan, where they've given people a break from one another. But we've seen a lot of people pivot hotel rooms where they can into being working spaces. So that's partly for our digital nomads, but partly also for local people who can't work from home. So if you've got great Wi-Fi connections and an ability to shut the door on people and deliver room service to people, this is Zoku, which is they're already pretty well set up to offer this. They're a Dutch hotel chain, but seriously, all you need to do is take the bed out, put a desk in, and get your room service coming in. And this is something that you could get to work reasonably well. The Indian owner of Overlow Hotels in Australia has just done something very similar with some of our high-end properties here. And believe me, people are paying for this. They're paying by the hour, they're paying by the month. Citizen M has actually launched one where you can buy and pre-book a certain number of days. So that's upfront revenue for you that you can then feed through and manage your demand to do. Which is really great. Now, I think we have some cruise companies on the line, you said, Sean. So this was a cruise ship that used to cruise the Australian waters. It used to be the P&O airline, P&O Cruises Pacific Dawn. It used to cruise Australian waters. They have rebadged it and relabeled it. It's been bought by a cryptocurrency millionaire. And he's turning it into a business center where people can live on the ship socially distanced. They're creating an entrepreneur's tech hub on there. You can come on and hold meetings on there, socially distanced from other people, because they're using the space in that way. And by the way, you can actually pay for all of it in a modern cryptocurrency. So all sorts of ways that if you're a cruise company and you've got inventory, you've got ships sat there, could you be reusing them in this way? We're seeing people, I'm constantly being asked about whether people will go back to cruising. Absolutely. Cruising is a cult. People love it. They already want to do it, but they'll probably be doing things like shorter cruises closer to home in destinations that they trust. We really will be starting to see that coming through as a way to do things. Tour companies. So this is G Adventures, which is an Australian-based but global tour operating company. And what they've done is created local tour experiences for people who are either stuck in destinations or close to where they are, where rather than people traveling with people that they don't know, you can create your own travel bubble. I don't know if you use that word in India, but we talk about the bubble a lot. So people who are within your social network that you have a reasonable degree of contact with, and you go away and travel with them. And alongside dealing with those kind of safety fears of traveling with people you don't know, this actually fits really well with the idea of things like multi-generational travel is a great way to do it. Affinity kinship groups, something that's there, and you've got the option in this. You can either just buy one of their standard tours, or they are tailor-making bespoke bubble tours. I mean, in effect, they were already doing that, but by rebadging it like this, it's actually creating something that I think is a really, really great experience. And that's something that any of you could do. So if you're in that business of already doing bespoke tours, think about rebranding to something like, I suspect G Adventures as trademark, Book Your Bubble, but can you put it together and position it and use language that enable you to do that? Being helpful, we're all quite fearful when we're traveling. So this is a resort in the Maldives, and they've got an on-site doctor. Part of your hotel bill includes a free COVID test. So you arrive, you have your COVID test, it's included in the price. They ask you to isolate until you get the results back. If you're unhealthy or if you've got COVID, they will keep you in your room, but your room has a luxury plunge pool. So it's a great place to wait it out. And they have medical facilities on site to help. So really, really helpful stuff. Something where you can actually, your staff, many of your staff may have, first aid training, so they can help with that. Probably build links to your local community and doing things going forward. And just dealing with the fear factor and giving people peace of mind, seeming helpful in solving the problems that they have with traveling is going to bring them to you. Etihad, they've got wellness ambassadors. So again, people who are giving you, it's not just a person, but it's also a whole series of suites of products and services that are telling you the things that you can do to manage your risk and looking after you and advising you on what you're doing and making sure that you're getting the best out of this. So again, if any of you've got staff who've got that kind of training, or you want to get your staff trained so that, there might be government training programs for that or grants for training. I think that this is something that people could do really, really quite easily. We're seeing another problem was people were realizing that they didn't have travel insurance for pandemic cover, or it was extremely expensive. So Emirates is offering people free global COVID cover. Now, the first iteration of this didn't prove to be that reliable, but Emirates have tweaked that product. I encourage you to go away and have a look at it, and perhaps to consider something that you could be doing as groups, because obviously this is quite expensive, but superior if you've got buying relationships with an insurance agency and you're buying at scale, you can probably make this more cost effective, and you would have some negotiating clout the consumer doesn't have. Incidentally, if you actually contract COVID, Emirates will look after you and pay all your healthcare fees. And incidentally, if you die, they'll actually repatriate your body. Obviously, we probably don't promote that to consumers, but the fact is that there's that tremendous reassurance that 98% of people who take this up will never use it, so that you can manage it. It feels like a bigger benefit to the consumer than it feels to you. And I'm always in favor when businesses are innovating to do that. Now this is where we're moving more into the space of areas where we need to be trying to influence government to help us. I absolutely love this. Now, if we think India's been badly affected, OECD have just produced a report where they've identified that the economies of the Caribbean and Latin America have been the worst affected by this pandemic. So this is the government of Barbados, and what it's done is it's given people who come and hang out and work there, our digital nomads, a 12-month visa. So they'll waive all the visa requirements about working there. for people who come and stay there and work there for around 12 months. So this is something where it solves all those problems about quarantining. It creates an opportunity for people to come in and stay, and it brings money into the economy, because obviously they'll be paying for that while they are working. They'll be earning money, those digital nomads. I just think this is a fantastic initiative, and this is definitely something that we could take to any government in the world and say, this is what we are asking you for. And because of the types of people that digital nomads tend to be, governments tend to be quite accessible to this. But I think this is super smart. I think the Barbados and the Bahamas are two Caribbean destinations who do a fantastic job of their marketing generally. And I think that's a great idea. Now, this is something where the New Zealand government became concerned that travel agents, that there was going to be a collapse in travel agencies and collapse in consumer confidence in the travel sector, to which New Zealand is very, very exposed. It's, I think, New Zealand's second biggest export industry. So what they did was they stepped in to help manage and pay travel agents and help them with the financial cost of doing refunds, which I know is as big an issue in India as it is everywhere else that the travel industry operates. So the government stepped in, and I've put in a link so that you can help and understand that, because again, I think this is something where we could go, and we've got a very strong economic case for government to go and talk to them about. Now, in Belgium, the railway systems they're owned by the government, and the government said, we're going to offer people who are taking a holiday free trade rides, so that actually people would travel within the areas that they were allowed to travel to. So this is something that I think is, again, something that we could be going and saying, well, look, one, can we get government to do this? But two, what are the things that we can do that we can give people that look like they're free, but then encourage people to spend money? So it's not just about what government can do with this. It's also about what we can do, that we can say, this is free if you do that. And that encourages people to spend and do money. And again, that's seen as being helpful. Now, this is, I mentioned at the beginning of this session that in Australia, we cannot travel outside our own state. This was a campaign that the Tasmanian government, Tasmania is a very heavily tourism dependent economy, that they came up with as a campaign to put economic stimulus into the economy and protect the economy and protect their tourism industry. And the great thing about this is actually a virtuous circle. And global economists agree that schemes like this are fantastic. So again, this is a scheme that we can take to government to do. And they ran a marketing campaign where they gave all Tasmanians, they put up a certain number of travel vouchers to the value of $550. And you had to go online and apply, but anyone who lived in Tasmania could apply. And as you can see on the page, the first iteration of these booked out. So what they did was the government puts it together, they put the digital assets together, they put the marketing together, they invited travel partners in. So you had to be registered with the scheme as a travel business, and you had to be giving something. You couldn't just say, well, here's my product, have it. You might be saying, well, you know, you could use your voucher accommodation. That goes towards accommodation and that pays for that, but we'll throw in a free breakfast. And they created a microsite, which you can go to and see here, and you can see the businesses that were on there. But just as importantly, they marketed it, and they did two things that are very clever. I'm going to show you the video in a moment. The first is that they aligned it to their external, intrastate and international marketing campaign in terms of a lot of the way the assets looked and felt, but then they twisted it to build on local pride. So I'm just going to quickly show you that video, which I think is Okay, so that, as I said, what you can see there is how, if you know the Tourism Tasmania campaign, you'll know that they've really linked that to the international marketing and domestic marketing campaigns, but they've really twisted on that. We're creative, we're adventurous, we're family. They brought all of those things together. So it's a really, really smart campaign. Destinations or places or even resorts, I think you could all do this, or you could come together as an industry. After the Bali bombings in 2002, there was a drop-off of Australians visiting Bali, which was absolutely devastating for their industry. The hotels there got together and they made a little $20,000 video, which was a play on a very notorious Tourism Australia campaign. So where the bloody hell are you? And that campaign, it cost the industry 20,000 and it paid for itself about 20 times over. The industry came together. It was humorous, it was quirky, it was funny, it was well targeted at Australians. And so this is something you could get government to do, but you could also band together and do for yourself to create this kind of ecosystem and this love and knowledge of local and passion for local. Now, this is again something where a government of Cyprus in Europe, so they have announced that they will do free tests for everyone who comes to visit on arrival, and you come and again you isolate, but you isolate in a beautiful place while you wait for your test results. If you've got COVID or you catch it during your stay, you get your holiday free. And the great advantage of that is, again, 99% of people won't catch anything. They manage the process. They get people to self-declare and do things, but it removes the fear of going there. So it makes it feel safe and it feels helpful by solving the client's problems. So I think it's a really great example of how to do that. Okay, now the last two examples are not examples about monetization. They're actually examples about being good citizens, but I think they're important to include in there. So this is Voli Voli Resort in Fiji. Fiji is closed at the moment because, for them to get the COVID would be absolutely devastating for them. But they're very, very heavily tourism dependent. It's their primary industry. Suddenly this resort had no one. It teaches diving. It had no one to do this. So they've actually running internships for locals. So they're training locals to dive or to get their dive master and dive instructor qualifications. So the person you see in the picture, he's actually the website manager for Tourism Fiji. So they're building alliances and networks with the NTO, but they're also creating themselves a skill base so that when things come back, they actually have a well-qualified and well-skilled local base so they can actually employ local divers who, believe me, will be much cheaper than having international divers come in and do things. So that's one example. Now, this is an example of a community tourism initiative from Vietnam. And I thought this was useful because I know community tourism is a very big product in India. So this was something where, visitors had disappeared for this type of product, and they were faced with a devastating impact on the small local communities that depend on the women who guide these tours. And so they launched a Go Get funding campaign, a crowdfunding campaign to support these people. And they initially set a target of $20,000. They closed it off when they got 36,000, so 180% of their funding. And that's made an enormous difference. But you can't do this unless it's at that very grassroots tourism initiative, because you will just look like a money grab. But if there are any people on the call or businesses who are in this situation who need help, this is a successful tactic. You will have to then promote it, particularly to the audiences who know you, and it will be about making the most of the people who've done those tours. But this is definitely something that you can consider. So we said it's felt a little bit like I'm talking more of this than I would ideally have liked to, but with so many on the call, it's quite difficult. What we wanted you to do, and I'd like you to start thinking about how you can do this, is how you can apply some of these lessons to your own businesses to help you. And I think the most important thing, as I said, is start by thinking about not what kind of business am I, but what kind of skills do I have, what things. So you need to kind of do this and brainstorm this, and you need to open it up and think about your business in very different ways. Look at the skill sets you have, look at the opportunities you have, look at what you've got to offer, and you know, are you good at digital marketing like Bunnick Tours were? Do you have great frontline staff who you could deploy to a call center? Do you have the ability, you know, are you community tourism where you could actually go out and make that appeal to people? All of those are different things that you could do. Could you actually convert your rooms? You know, do you have the ability? Do you have fast Wi-Fi? Do you have spaces that you can manage securely where workers could come in? Do you have the capacity? Is there a way that you can attract workers to come and work and isolate with you? So it's really about thinking about that very much, and thinking about it very, very widely and not narrowly, and thinking across those kind of broad trends and coming together and doing it as a team. I wouldn't make that team too big, but I would mean that it's diverse, that you, if you're really a micro business like I am, so I'm like you, many of you, I'm, you know, a 2-person full-time employee, but with a wide neural network. I pull on that neural network of partners like Big Blue Road. We bring people in and we think through these things. But you want a different range of experience. You want senior people, junior people, different departments, different disciplines coming together. And you must, it's particularly important in societies which value hierarchy, that you actually make sure that you as the bosses, and I'm guessing in many cases it will be the bosses or senior managers who are on this call, that you are able to, that you get people to record their ideas and share them before you share their own. Because, you know, most of your staff will be sunflowers. They will look to you as the sun and they will follow you. So you want to be encouraging that diversity of opinion, and particularly your most junior and frontline. There is globally a lot of academic and pragmatic and consulting evidence that this has come through. So I think now, maybe Sean, I can hand back to you to launch our final poll and for us to go into the Q&A and make this a little bit more interactive.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm going to put my camera back on. I've launched the poll. There we go. Thank you very much, Caroline, for that. I've been going through, you know, some of the questions, and I think you kind of answered some of them already through you know, the notes that you mentioned during the presentation. But I think one that keeps coming up is the examples that were given were from an international perspective. So how do you see that this would work in the Indian ecosystem? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think it's a very important one. And I think the first thing, Sean, is I did try to pick examples that I felt in some way or another would be applicable to that. But I'm going to let you in on a secret. The tourism industry globally, we're a tribe. If I, for example, had $1 for every destination all around the world that I've worked with who came up to me and said, oh, look, Caroline, you need to understand, we've got very difficult stakeholders and we've got a lot of loud voices in the room. And, you know, it's very, very hard for us to do things. I can safely say I wouldn't need to consult anymore. I would be lying on a beach in India somewhere or visiting, you know, amazing temples, because there's a lot more in common than we think. Now, I know there are some specific things that maybe there's quite a wide range of experience on things like digital, for example.
Right.
But I'd honestly say on that, businesses that are not moving to digital now are simply not going to survive.
You're right.
So I think beyond that.
Yeah, so I think it's basically, you know, if you looked at it 10 years back, you would segregate businesses to say, are you in the manufacturing sector? Are you in the service sector? Are you in the technology sector? And I think those lines are blurred now. If you're not in the technology sector, I mean, every business is in the technology sector. Yes. You know, so you're not a technology company, but every company has the technology. And I think being able to adopt that right now is the need of the hour. So I think, yeah, that's kind of spot on. But I think one of the, you know, the other things that a lot of the questions that came, and I think the theme is uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty. And I think it was a very straightforward question. And it was, you know, with everything being so uncertain, lack of funds and lack of support, and the government does not really see the tourism sector as a key sector, maybe as an ancillary sector. And let's put it this way: we've got no money to relaunch, right? So, what should we do? I think that's a straight question.
Yeah, there's a name for what we're going through at the moment, and it's called a wicked problem. And it's one of those things where it feels like every lever that you pull, something else goes wrong. I'm actually going to break that down into kind of two bits, Sean. The one is the managing through uncertainty. And there's up to a point we can't change the uncertainty, but we can change how we react to uncertainty. Right. So the first thing that we need to do is we kind of need to frame what we're doing in terms of the fact that we are going to have to work through that.
Caroline,
yeah.
Sorry, you had muted yourself. Sorry.
I've not muted myself. I think my system's muting me, but hopefully I think it's saying I've talked enough. Who knew that computers were sentient? But I think what I'd say is we actually need to reframe that and think about what can we do and what are the things that we can manage through uncertainty. So the first thing I would say is scenario plan. So look at what are the best and worst case scenarios. And there's actually a lot of scenario plans out that can help you. McKinsey's have some really great global ones that they're using, and you can just download them free from their site. Or you can, obviously you can get help from people like us as well to do that. But scenario plan for all of those, and then try and work out what you're going to do in each of those different situations. And then work out and try and pick the winners from those different situations and create plans for those. Right. But you're going to need to get comfortable with dealing with uncertainty, which is, I have to admit, absolutely exhausting. Right. I think we're all exhausted, aren't we? I know I kind of feel like I've been carrying the travel industry and keeping them positive and motivated for like 6 months all on my own. So I sort of feel like that too. But that's kind of what we actually have to do on that side. The second thing is, if you haven't got money to spend, you touched on it, Sean, which is that reframing and breaking down into micro pieces what you've actually got. So that configuration issue is, what is it that you could do without spending any money?
So what you're talking about is the transferable skill. So if I'm a travel agent, don't kind of always think that I'm an agent of travel, or if I'm a tour operator, I'm not only a tour operator, but break it down into what skill sets you have in the organization and see if you can apply that somewhere else.
Yeah, I bet if you looked at your frontline staff as in any of these, you'd find some people who had really great digital marketing skills if you're needing to build that up, and they've been dying to show them to you. But realistically, it's also about what are the things in your business that you can change without spending money, or how can you move the pockets of money around? And I know that that's incredibly hard. But again, if you're looking at it saying, well, we really want to keep our valued staff, but we know we need to invest in digital marketing, that's where that outsourcing and then releasing that funding that you're spending on salaries at the moment come through. The second side of that, you talked about this fact that government don't really recognize the importance of tourism. Now, we're at slightly different stages around the world, but that is not an uncommon problem outside India as well. And one thing I can safely say is, in countries that are very heavily tourism dependent, if they didn't know it before, they bloody well know it now. That you can see what happens when tourism is pulled out, because we think of tourism as being visitors coming in, and I think governments sometimes see it's fluffy. But what we can actually see is tourism provides jobs for everyone from cleaners to chief executives. We have an enormous multiplier effect. So if you are taking out a tourism job, you are probably taking out, typically in a country like India, I think WTCC estimates each tourism job in India generates 1/8 of another tourism, so virtually another job. So you're pulling 2 jobs out if you don't support us. So that's the first thing, is we need to be showing government the value of tourism and using the evidence base. But the second thing I do see as a common error, and this is not unique to India, but I would say it's just as true of India as anywhere else, is we as an industry, because we're so fragmented and we cover so many different verticals, we don't often speak with one voice to government, and we don't often give them solutions and go to them and say, we say we need help, but we don't say, help us with this. And we don't ask them to help us with things that it's easy for them to say yes to.
Right. So your idea is go to them with a plan, an action plan,
yes,
on what is needed and how that would benefit the industry and benefit the economy, rather than just go to them and say we need help.
Yes. So go to them and be very positive. And I do think this is where, now I know associations all around the world are under enormous pressure at the moment, but this is where your associations are so important, in that they can collate and bring all of that together, and they can talk to one another as well. So we have a restart force in Australia, for example, that's all the associations came together and they sit and talk as one body to government. And they, they wrestle out tease out the things that are there. So instead of government having 12 people all going to them going, you need, give me, they have one voice that goes to tourism, and they talk about the things that we consistently need, or the things that we most urgently need. So you actually have tour operators agitating for the borders to open for airlines. You have airlines supporting regional tourism initiatives, for example,
right.
So that when we're working together, we are strong. It's like the difference between pushing your fingers like that and thumping.
Correct.
Working together is our thump, and
right.
that thump packs the power, and that's what we need to do. But we then need to put it in the velvet glove of the solutions, because government likes solutions.
Right.
They like us to be coming to them and partnering and have a negotiating base. So, Mark and I were chatting about this earlier, and we were saying, you might go to them and say, this is what we want. And they might say, we won't give you that, but we will give you that, which is that is still a lot more for the industry than we've got already.
Right. And since you touched upon associations, one of the questions that came up was, as an association, how do you think, we can help them, with our expertise? What can we kind of do for the associations? Is there something that you'd like to share on that?
Well, I'm always glad to get questions like that, Sean, because those are the best questions when you do what we do. And I think that's probably, I'd say that should be a question that we both answer, because Sheldon mentioned that we partner with Big Blue Road, represents mytravelresearch.com in India and also in the UK. Which is ironic for me because I am originally British. But talent is talent, and you take it, and talent and connections and networks.
Yeah.
I left 20 years ago, so your network's there and now is good or better than mine. So I would say talk to us together. We do have products and services that are targeted at associations, and we can work with you collectively. And we do have some mechanisms where what we were inviting people to do, you can see on on the question slide, there is an email to say talk to us bigblueroad.co.in, and what we will do with that was we will work through the people who said they did want to chat to us, and the initial phase of that is a one-on-one consultation. So that could be an association consultation, but it could equally well be a business consultation, and we'll sit down and chat about what you need and what we can work. Now, we, like you, have bills to pay. But that first conversation is free.
Yeah. And I think the reason we put the email address is because, Carolyn and myself had this conversation, and there are various ways, you can set it up on a website and you can set up forms. But I thought, we thought it was great to kind of just engage in a conversation. So, just as simple as just sending an email to that email address and saying, we need help with something, or do you have any idea on something? And then we can set up a first call, to kind of evaluate where you need help and then take it forward from there.
Okay, that's great. And any other questions that have kind of come through?
I think
Sean?
I think you already answered that about the revenue. One of the questions was, are these ideas just to kind of pivot, or are they actually generating revenue? And I think you answered that with the Singapore Airlines example.
Well, that was a nice, easy one because that was nice and public. I knew it was sold out and I knew what it cost. But I think what we've actually seen, people won't actually put the numbers out. But I talked to Experience Travel. I talked to Jackie Walsh, who's the CEO of the Walsh Group, who came up with, she and her business partner, Nigel Bell, came up with that one. And I chatted about that with them. And they said, look, it's actually going so well. They're expanding it. And they expect to keep it open as an experience after New Zealand emerges from shutdown. Now, again, some of you who are destinations may actually know Jackie Walsh. She's quite famous, out, not just in Australia, but with destinations globally. You will know that she is a pretty hard-nosed businesswoman, and she's not going to be doing stuff. I mean, she'll contribute time. She's enormously generous with her time, but she's a very shrewd businesswoman, and she wouldn't be doing that if she wasn't seeing revenue advantages, not just for her, but also in building those relationships when she comes out of this, because she knows that the businesses that, if she's got businesses that are still out there, her travel agent partners are still in business and they've got that relationship, that's who they're going to be working with, and that's who they're going to be funneling their work towards. And that relationship is also how she's selling to destinations, airlines, hotels, etc.
So I think that brings us to the last question, because if we kind of circle into the profile, I think a lot of the businesses, at least large proportion of the businesses that are on this call, are small businesses, and like you said, in the travel industry, you generally see businesses at two ends of the spectrum. You've got the small ones, and then you got the extremely big ones. So I think the question that came in was, with everyone going online, right? So everyone's kind of having to take their business online in some form or the other, whether it's running those processes online or actually taking the product online for sale. The challenge is, how can these smaller companies compete with the big boys with deep pockets?
Okay, well, I mean, that's always a challenge. Again, as a micro business owner, I live that challenge with you guys. I actually think there's two ways to look at this. One, they have the deeper pockets and they've often got that marketing smarts. But again, if you're working as groups together, you can get to that. But, actually small companies have lots of advantages as well, because your business inside out. You're passionate about it. I mean, yes, right now it is going to be a challenge to find the investment funds to start setting these things up, but definitely start small. So the first thing I would say is, and Google agrees with me on this, and Google knows this stuff because they own the algorithms. Your website, you should start with having a website. Social media is important, but your website is your shop front these days. So just as if you've got a physical office at the moment, this is the new version of that. So get yourself a good website and make sure it's a good website with bookability on it. And that is going to be an investment that pays back, because I can't count the number of times all around the world, Sean, that, businesses say to me, how do I not have to book through booking.com? And I said, well, tell me about their website. I said, oh, no, we've given up on that. We've only got Facebook. Well,
so website's basically your passive source of income, which is working when you're sleeping. It's working when you're at the beach. Yes. It's working when you're at home. It's always there working for you in the online space.
Yes, it's also your voice, and it's your face these days. So I think that's and then the other thing is, I'll say, well, can I get real-time confirmation on your website? Oh, no. Well, here's the thing. The reason people book with booking.com is they can get real-time confirmation. The other thing that through our partnership with you in the membership site, Sean, we've got a whole bunch of resources around what are the terms that you can buy that will be cheap to buy, but will put you in front of people so you're up with the big boys if you are doing that kind of SEO. So SEO marketing, be useful. So I talked about that helpfulness. Don't go out there and say, buy from us. Come out there and, if you're a hotel, talk to people about what's in your area. Talk to them about what are the, how you can manage safely in your area. We've really seen a lot of businesses doing really well and bumping up their search around that, because people are booking with confidence and they're sharing that. So don't assume that you're powerless, I think, is the other thing, that framing. Don't assume you're powerless because you're small. What you've got is you don't have 25 layers of approvals to get your website done. You as a business owner can work with whoever's designing it. And you may find, as I say, you've got people in your teams who can do this, or there are consultants to help you. I'm not naming any names, sure, but we know this is something you've done. You know, you can make those decisions. You can be much, much quicker and more responsive because you're small.
Right. Great. So I think that covers most of the questions. Caroline, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to give the group?
Yes, I probably the one thing is I do hope that you've got some notes, and we would love to hear back from you. So talk to us about consulting, but talk to us about how you've applied these solutions and give us some case studies where, in a sense, I've just done a job promoting all of those businesses to a whole new market. We'd love to hear your case studies and your examples of how you're doing this and your questions about how to apply this and do it, because I think that's really where what I hope you've been doing is writing down little ideas about, I could do that, and those little light bulb moments. We'd love to hear your light bulb moments. What about you, Sean? What else do you think we should be telling people at this point?
Yeah, so I think, I think it's all about conversations and about collaborations. I think, to answer that question about small companies, I've seen great examples where small companies have come together and collaborated. Today it is all about that social currency and being able to collaborate. So, as we come to the conclusion of this e-workshop, I just want to say that this is the beginning. So if you'll have any questions, you'll just want to, bounce off an idea, or you would like to, set up a call and see how we can help you, just, write an email to that email address that's mentioned on the last slide. That is talktous@bigblueroad.co.in. And either of us will try to get back to you, within 48 hours. And, we can take it forward from there. I would also like to thank Caroline. Thank you for her time. Thank her for her time and, sharing some great examples and great case studies from the global marketplace. If anything in particular interests you, let us know. And then, maybe we can figure out a way how we can recreate that for your business in India. Last but not the least, I think he's still on the call, but I'd like to thank Sheldon and Travel Biz Monitor for providing this platform, to reach out to all of you and my fellow associates within the travel industry. So having said that, I just want to sign off by saying, stay safe, stay productive.
Indeed, and thank you to Sheldon. And this platform is actually a great example of a pivot as well. So it's a wonderful Indian example. Thank you, Sheldon. Thank you, Sean. And it's been wonderful to share ideas with you, and hope this is the start of a very long conversation.
Great. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone, for sparing the time to hear us out. I hope this was what you wanted. I hope this has been useful for you. And till we meet again, stay safe, stay well. Bye-bye.